Excellent. Well, welcome to this third session, team, leadership session. Now, I'm quite excited about this session in particular because I think that what we are going to go through is where you can get to the real root of actually helping people to achieve things. I think that, a lot of leadership training, so far has focused on character, has focused on who you have to be as a leader. This gives you some actual tools to help people to achieve what it is they need to achieve. Because I think that, personal mastery is about helping yourself to, getting yourself to a point where you can be what you need to be, to do what you need to do, to have what you need to have. Leadership is about helping other people be what they need to be, so they can do what they need to do, so they can have what they need to have, they want to have. And I think that, so this is why this session this time, what I wanted to do is really tie it to the personal development session we did with the rest of the team, so that you actually can take it a level deeper and apply it that much more in your lives, but also look at how you can use it within your team to help them get what it is they want in their lives and the results that they need in their business, or at the business. So, this isn't putting through. You're in the way, Mike. Excuse me.
Where does it need to point to?
I think you can use the mouse.
I can use the mouse, but
I want it to work.
It's not working. I use the mouse. Fine. If the mouse works.
Oh, it's on Skype.
Okay. All right. So the question is, how do some leaders create consistent and outstanding success in their teams? And last time we looked at how do individuals create the consistent and outstanding success. I think good leaders are able to diagnose the problem. So they're able to actually impact people at a level that they need to be impacted on. I think that most leaders will scratch the surface in terms of they'll look at what people are doing. I mean, that's where most people stop. And I think that's where most people's understanding of human psychology stops. Because they go, okay, you're not doing this, that you need to do this. And that really, as we talked about when it comes to achieving results in your life, is really the level you need to actually focus on to have an impact. So, we talked about the three levels these three tools that you can use, but I think of them as levels, and think of them as at each level is going deeper. In terms of getting what it is you want and creating results in your life, you can either look at the strategy, what it is you're doing, you look at the stories, which is the narrative that you're running, or the beliefs that you have about something, or you can go deeper and look at what state is it that you're in, which is filtering those stories, which is therefore affecting the strategies that you're choosing. So what I'm going to do is just quickly run through those again, because just to recap on what we learned last time, I think repetition is the mother of skill, so we'll go through it again. You want to get this stuff ingrained in you so it becomes second nature, so that you know this stuff at a physical core level. You're not trying to think about it and go, oh, is it this? Is it, you really know this, and therefore I think you're going to be able to help people. And I'm going to give you a framework for how you diagnose and also how you treat, this. If you look at it from a medical perspective. So, as I said, this is about understanding deeper so that for yourself you're going to get better results. Part of being a leader is leading by example. So you're all experts in your areas. By getting better results, that is one of the traits that builds trust, as we've talked about, is being able to actually be an expert at what you do and deliver those results. Helping people to be their best. This is the key. This is dealing with the problem. So to me, this is, we've talked about it at other times, but most of the time people focus on the symptom. So they'll give the Panadol for the headache, which is, it's like the Band-Aid, it's like the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Whereas what you need to do is go, well, what's actually causing their headache? Oh, it's the brain tumour that they've got. So the Panadol's not going to do much, but it's the brain tumour is still a symptom of the toxins that they're continuing to ingest, or whatever it is. But you've got to go down, you've got to dive deeper to go, what's the problem? Because when you can remove the root cause or fix the root cause, then the rest cascades up and you get better results. I also want to talk specifically about modelling, looking at other people who've got results that you want and doing that effectively, because I think as leaders we need to have role models. And we also need to be able to learn from those role models what it actually is that's important that made them get those results. Because it is about getting those results, but it's not just about what do they do to get those. And so I think we want to just go a bit deeper about that and open a discussion up around that. So as I said, the quick recap. The first thing you can look at is strategy. This is the how-to. This is how do we get this done. This is the stuff that pretty much everyone focuses on. It's necessary for consistent success. You've got to have a good strategy. You don't have to have the best strategy in the world, but you do have to have a decent one. But strategy is very rarely the issue. As I said, in the last one, you want to get fit, there's a million ways you can do it. One is just to start running. The strategy is not normally the problem. So, but with your team, you might look at it and go, if so the results aren't being got, is the strategy the issue? If it is, then that's cool. You're always going to go one level deeper to make sure that there's nothing below that. Because sometimes the strategy won't be right, but the reason it's not right is because if you go deeper, the belief wasn't right, so they're choosing the wrong strategy. So you've got to always keep diving deeper. So first of all, look at the strategy. Is the strategy the problem? Yes or no? Next one is the belief. It's the story. As I said, this is a narrative. This is what we're telling ourselves. And this is whether you believe it or believe you can or believe you can't, you're absolutely right. And this is so, so important because someone may have a great strategy, but if they've got a belief that says, I can't do this, or I didn't have the right education, therefore I'm not able to do this, or I'm not confident in front of other people, therefore I can't present this presentation. Doesn't matter how good the strategy is, this is going to be an issue. There are three types of belief. There are beliefs about cause. So this is, if this happens, therefore this happens. So this happened to me, therefore I am, would be one of those ones. And it may be empowering, it may be disempowering. There's beliefs about meaning. So this is, this happened, therefore it means this. So someone may have looked at me in a certain way, therefore it means they don't like me. Or, therefore it means they respect me. Completely different meanings, it's all made up, remember. Beliefs about identity. This is about I am. I am or I am not is equally as important. I am not a good public speaker. I am not good on the phone. I am terrible at cold calls. Or as opposed to I can do whatever it takes and whatever I'm called for, I'm going to be able to deliver at that moment in time. Different beliefs. So and you can find out these beliefs from people by asking questions. Or even posing. For this to happen, you might believe this. Or what is it you believe about the situation? What is it that you believe about your abilities? What do you think is the cause of this? Why has this happened? What is the meaning behind this? So you can actually, what does this say about you? You can ask questions specifically related to each of these three levels to find out what it is. And all you're doing is building up someone's, their model of the world. You're finding out what their model of the world is. And by doing that, you're uncovering what it is, what story they're running, which is filtering everything else. So, as I said, it filters the world. And the thing about the beliefs is that experience leads to beliefs, but beliefs also lead to experience. So as soon as you have a belief about something, that is the experience you're going to have of it. Again, it's all interpretation, it's all the meaning that we give it. So dive deep on this with people. Discover what your team's internal story is, what their monologue is, because that's what's driving the strategy and driving what results they're going to get. And the third thing you can look at is state. So state is where you go down. This is how we are in the moment. This is our state of mind, this is our state of being. And as we know, there are three levels, there are three parts of the state, the triad. There's our physiology, it's how we hold our body. It's how we move, it's how we breathe, it's what we eat, it's what we drink. It's our physicality. So, you can have a state like this, or you can have a state like this. It's a completely different emotion goes with it, and emotion drives motion. We can look at focus. So you can look at, am I focusing on an empowering belief? Am I focusing on a negative belief? Am I focusing on am I taking a powerful meaning from this, or a disempowering meaning? And what language are we using? So these are the three areas that make up the state. And you want to look, dive down to this, because if someone is in a disempowered state, if someone is kind of like this all the time and eyes down and just can hardly get themselves moving, you're not going to sit there and talk about, well, the strategy's wrong. You've got to bring their state up first. Then you can look at, well, what stories are they telling themselves? What meanings are they choosing? Because the state will filter those stories. If you're in a crappy state, you're going to have a crappy story running. If you're in a really great state, you're going to have a much better story, and you're going to pick a different strategy. So it's diving down, it's knowing there's 3 levels and getting down to the core, and then going up. It may be, if we look at these 3 levels, it may be that just the strategy was wrong, and you go down, and there are no problems with belief. They know they can do it. They're new. They've just been hired. They're excited. They're ready to go, and they've got the methodology wrong. So it's like, hey, fix the strategy. You don't need to worry about the other stuff. But it may be something deeper. And if you just trick the strategy and the belief isn't fixed, then it won't change anything. So those are the 3 levels. And I think this is how we kind of talk about this throughout it. But when you look at your team, this is where I think is somewhere where you can really have a positive impact on your team, is actually, as I said, getting to the root cause, not just treating the symptom. It's quicker to always go, just do this, you should be doing this. And that's talking strategy. But it's rarely effective. And I think it's rarely effective long term, definitely. So the first thing you look at with your team is, are they getting the results they need to get? Are they getting great results? And if they're not, or if they aren't in certain areas, the question is, what's the problem? Are we looking at a strategy problem? Are we looking at a story problem, or are we looking at a state problem? And you keep asking the question, what's the problem? What's the problem? Until you keep getting down to get to the root cause. So, you look at it, what's the problem? Okay, they're doing the wrong thing. Or what's the problem? Ask some questions. Find out, is there a belief that's driving them doing the wrong thing? Okay, cool. What's the problem? Are they just in a crappy state? Or are they in a great state, but, see, rarely you'll have a great state and a poor story. So that they often go hand in hand. But the key is to sort of get down as deep as you can. So you analyze from the top down. You start from strategy. You look at story. You look at state. So you go as deep as you need to go, and then you assist or you treat from the bottom up. So you start from the level of the problem, because once you do that, the cascade up is that it's much easier to impact each of those levels above. Now, at this point, does anyone have any questions? No? What about in Australia?
No.
No? Cool. And I think that the thing to me for this is, the exciting thing is, it gives you a tool to really actually help someone out. And not just help them in the moment. You actually get to help them grow and become more of a, more, which is exciting. So, if I would be able to get along, we should see. Alright. So, I'm just going to go through this again a little bit more, just in a little bit more depth. But we've talked about it, but as I said, repetition is the mother of skill. The thing about this is, it's not complicated, and it's important that you follow the method and follow the the steps, because that way you'll get to the answer. And that's what I find. I think this is really cool. Firstly, strategy. Are they using an effective one? Yes or no? Story. What beliefs are driving it? Is it belief about cause, belief about meaning, beliefs about identity? How do you find out someone's beliefs? Ask them questions, exactly. Get curious. So find out what it is that's driving them. That's the important thing. And as I talked about last time, if it's a story problem, if it's a belief problem, you can help shift those beliefs in a number of ways. You can shift it through questions. You can kind of challenge their thinking. But that's what most people will do. So that's not the only way. The other way is you can tell stories. You give them references from your life, from someone else's life who's like them, from someone famous. So you can kind of shift their model of the world to open up what's possible. References are a great way of doing it. And if they are willing to engage and they're like, look, this isn't serving me and it's really hard for me to shift this belief, then incantations are a proven way to change someone's belief. Remember, with incantations, you want to make it in the present moment, so I am. You want to talk about the emotion that they will feel with this, and you want to talk about kind of the action. So, I am, if they're having issues with presenting, an incantation might be, I love the feeling of confidence I get with sharing my message with the world. Whatever it is, something like that, but I love the feeling of confidence I get sharing my message with the world. Get them to use their bodies, use their emotion, use their voice. And remember, this has to be done for 30 days without stop. Remember that I shared that study from NASA where they had the astronauts wear the convex glasses which flipped the world upside down. The astronauts, all without fail, between days 25 and 30, their brains flipped the world back up and they started seeing the world the right way. Except for the astronauts who'd taken them off for a period of time on the 15th day, they reset back to zero. So the key with changing belief is repetition. 5 minutes a day for a minimum of 30 days. That's how you can really shift a belief. Because remember, you've been running this pattern for a long time. You've got these little neural pathways and you've got the little feet have been running up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. You need to actually get the feet running in a new direction. And as soon as you take those feet off, they'll start running in the same way again. So that's kind of how to think of it. Make sure you're exercising on the right neural pathway. You can do that with yourself, obviously. You can help someone else to do it. There's just some simple tools. Get down to state. How do you use state to change someone? I think, as I said, firstly with state, we are role models. So we set the example. Your team will take cues from you, which is really important to remember. You set the tone. So, if that's the first way I think you can use state. If you look at the focus part of state, you can refocus someone through questions. You can get them, if they're focusing on the problem, you don't necessarily have to say, okay, this is a state problem, your focus is wrong. They might be just in a little rut saying, focusing on the problem, just grumbling and rah. So maybe you could say, okay, we know what the problem is. What's the solution? Or how could we make this a better situation than it is already? What more could we do? How could we use this thing that's gone wrong to come out better than we were before? Refocus someone, because you don't necessarily tell them you're refocusing them, but we think with questions. So if you ask a better question, they will deliver a better answer, and that will shift their state. In terms of the physiology, there's a few ways you can do this, and there's the sales team, and most people will know about building rapport. You build rapport some ways of doing it is through matching and mirroring. So you match their physiology. So if someone's in a real peak state and you want to connect with them, you adopt that peak state as well. If they're talking fast, you start to talk a bit faster with them. If they're talking slow, then you'll do the same thing. But that's one way of doing it. So if someone's in a great state, you can match that state and empower it, bring it up. The other way is if someone's in a low state, if someone's in a low state and you just come in, bang, and hit them hard and fast with peak state, let's go. There's not enough rapport there. So what you can do is match and then lead. So if someone's in a low state, you can start with that voice that they're in, the slow voice, they're talking quietly, and they're a bit like this, and then you can just quietly start making subtle changes yourself in your posture, in your voice, and you lead them to a new state. Without telling them change your state, you can take them from where they are to where you think where they need to be to take an empowering meaning, to have a better story so they can execute the strategy better. Does that all make sense?
Absolutely.
Does anyone have any thoughts or comments or questions around that?
No.
Cool. Well, I think, as I said, again, I can't say it enough. Start at the top and work down. And know that you've got tools at each of these levels that you can apply if you know where that's the problem. It may be that you need to address multiple, but you address from the bottom up. So you bring the state up first. Remember, if someone's in a low state, it's very hard for them to change their meaning, change the story, get an empowering story. But if you bring up their state, bring up their energy, for however you want to call it, their state of mind, then you can say, hey, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that you can't speak in public? Or what if you could? Or who do you know who has overcome that before? You can refocus them, and they can take a more empowering meaning, and therefore they can use a more empowering strategy. So, let's see if I can. So, and when it comes to modelling, did I talk about modelling last time in the session with the team? Or not really? No, okay. So modelling, I think, is a great tool to use. It's finding people who have achieved what you want to achieve and then doing what they do. It's a shortcut to success. Now, as we have learned about today, as we know now, success is multi-layered. It's not just what you do. But that is when most people look at modelling. They go, what did so-and-so do? How am I going to do that? The problem with that is that's like the tip of the iceberg. It's like the little bit that's above the water, the vast majority of the powerful stuff is below the water. So I think with effective modelling, you want to look, of course, you want to look at what they do. You want to look at that within the context of the environment they are operating in. The best strategy today could be the worst strategy tomorrow. So you look at that, what do they do? But you go deeper. You got to find out what were their belief systems. How did they think? You know, if you want to learn from someone like Richard Branson or Gandhi or Muhammad Ali, you don't just look at what they do. You don't look at Muhammad Ali and go, how did he train? That's one of the areas, but you look at what did he believe? Because that's what really drove him. That's what made him one of the greatest boxers of all time. You know, if you look at Anthony Mundine, as an example, he does what Muhammad Ali does, but it's clearly not even a scratch on how effective Muhammad Ali was. He hasn't gone to what are the belief systems, but also go a little lower. What's the mental syntax? How was he thinking? That's so critically important too. You know, if you take syntax is kind of the order that something happens in. So, you know, if you said the dog bit Mike, that would be one thing. If you said Mike bit the dog, that would be a completely different meaning using exactly the same words. The second one, you'd be looking at Mike a bit funny. The first one, you'd be feeling sorry for Mike because he got bitten by the dog. But the order, you know, the mental syntax is really important. How do people think? You know, are they focusing on goals? Are they focused? So you really get quizzical and get interested in, you know, are they goal oriented? Do they focus on why that goal is important? You know, how did they actually go about creating this in their lives? And you look at their state as well, because state is a filter for everything else. So someone's strategy and belief system, look, Donald Trump, for example, his strategy and belief system is filtered by the state that he adopts. Now, if you can bring that same sort of state, then that might be a great belief system to adopt and a strategy to adopt. If you have more of a state like Mahatma Gandhi, then you're going to adopt then those beliefs and strategies are going to be completely different. They're not going to work in the same way. So all I'm saying is with modelling is just think a bit deeper. You know, dive deeper, find out what it is, what they believe, how do they believe, what do they believe, what are their stories, what's their internal narrative. And you can do that through autobiographies and stuff. You can read into it, you can get an idea about, you know, what it is their internal monologue is. Think about, you know, look at their mental syntax. How are they thinking? Are they focused on goals? Are they focused on contribution, on whatever it is? Look at what it is, the order of their thinking, and also what state are they in, because that's a really critical aspect to filtering everything else. So, anyone have any questions around modelling? No, I mean, as I said, I think modelling is a great tool for leaders to use. You know, look at leaders, look at people you respect, look at people who are achieving what it is you want to achieve, and then effectively model what they do. So you model what they do, how they think, and what they think, and the state that they bring to it. And I think that's so important. It's also quite simple when you look at it, but it also shines light on why you might think, well, I've done what they did, and I didn't get the same results. There are so many people around like that. You know, and there are also people who don't seem to do the right thing, but seem to get great results. And we all know people like that. The difference is the belief systems. The difference is the state that they're bringing. Because the strategy is, while it's the bit everyone focuses on, is possibly one of the least important parts, because there are so many strategies that can work. So, in summary, now I wanted to keep this session quite short today. What I think is important is what you do with it, because you don't need to complicate this stuff. It's really quite simple. The key is how you go out and apply it. So success is about what strategy we're using. And I've said this a lot of times. I don't even know how many times I've said this today, and I keep saying it because it's so important. What strategy are we using? What story are we running? And what state are we in? Use it with yourselves. Use it with yourselves, because that's the best place to get mastery, and use it for your team. You know, if someone in your team isn't getting results, and so the challenge for this month is to go out and, you know, when someone's not getting the right results, not go, and I've got to do the same thing, because the easy thing to do is go, okay, do it this way. You know, just change what you do. It's quicker, it's in the moment, you don't have to think too hard, it's easy, and it's ineffective. So the challenge is to go, okay, pause. What's the problem? Is this a strategy thing? Or is that really, is that really the problem? Is there something underneath it? What belief system are they using? What do they believe that makes this strategy okay if the strategy is ineffective? Or what do they believe that means that they're not going to actually do this strategy particularly well? You know, look at that. But also look at people who are getting great results and kind of get quizzical. You know, what strategy are they using? What are they thinking? What is their story? Or do you have to go another step deeper and go, what state are they in? State's really pretty easy to assess pretty quickly. But do you need to move their state? Do you need to change someone's state? You know, it might just be that, you know, you're in a meeting or whatever and everyone's getting grumpy. All right, you could stand up potentially. Or someone's getting, you know, frustrated in what they're doing and, you know, you're their leader. Get them up, go for a walk, have a walking talk, for example. That'll change your state without saying, I'm going to change your state now. Or do you need to ask them better questions and refocus them? If it's a real belief system that they're running, how are you going to help them move through that? Are you going to help reframe how they think about it? Are you going to give them references from your life, from someone else's life, from famous people's life? Or are you going to encourage them to do some incantations? So, remember, diagnose top down. Start with the strategy. Move down to the story, move down to the state, and then treat or assist from the bottom up. Get the state on board first. Make sure they can do the empowering story, and then look at the strategy. And as I said, this will take a little bit longer, and it will have longer term effects too. And it will mean you don't have to keep revisiting the same thing, which is this keeps happening, this keeps happening, this keeps happening. The reason it's happening is because there's a little wee rat running on a little wheel underneath, which is driving it, which is just a story about why something can or can't happen. It's so, so important. And as leaders as well, I encourage you to start modelling people effectively. You know, look at who are your role models? Who are people you respect? Think about it in terms of leadership. Think about it in terms of other areas. And then get quizzical. Wonder, what are they thinking? What are their belief systems? You know, what's the story they're telling themselves? What state are they in? Because then you can effectively model them. And, you know, that is one of the quickest ways to get to where you want to go, or to get the results someone else has got. So I think it's really important, it's really simple, and the only way you're going to get it is to use it in your life, use it in your team's life, and remember you're not going to get it right or get it perfect to start with, but you'll get it better than you were before. So practice on your teams. You know, it's still going to be more effective for them than if you didn't do it, and you're going to get a whole lot better. So does anyone have any questions about how they might apply it, or any questions about, or need clarity about how they might apply it, or what they need to look for, or a situation? Or does anyone have a situation with a team member that they may want to just, you know, run through at the moment? We, you know, talk it through and see if we can diagnose where the issue is.
I don't have a situation with a team member, but objection handling. When
Sure.
you're talking to anybody, a potential client,
Sure.
or a customer, you know, that this theory is so relevant for handling objections. And getting to the root cause of why they're actually saying no, ultimately, and then diagnosing that no, because their perception and the reason for them saying no is more often than not incorrect or not in line with what you're
Paul,
trying to sell
sorry,
them.
can you move a bit closer to the mic, or because we can't hear you?
Sorry, I was just suggesting that from an objection handling point of view, this theory is really, really useful as well.
Yeah.
You know, for diagnosing that no, getting to the bottom of why it is that a potential customer or a doctor doesn't want to go to a location, or doesn't want to pick up a set of nights, or doesn't want to do this or that or the other. You know, that questioning, starting from the top down, you know, second, third level questionings, looking at the symptoms, and using it in that sort of reference would be really useful as well.
That's a great point. And often it'll come down to a belief about something.
Yeah, it always does.
But it may just be a state. It may just be they're in an absolute grump. They're going to say no matter what you do at that point in time. And maybe you have to go, all right, we have to come back to this.
Yeah.
Or can I change your state?
Yeah.
Difficult
Might
over
just
the
be
phone.
phoning them slightly later in the day.
But possible. But maybe you'll start noticing exactly. You don't call them at 5:30 in the morning because they're always grumpy. They're going to say no every time.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great distinction, Paul. And the thing about it is, to me, this is kind of like a results formula. So you can apply it in so many different ways. You can apply it in your own life. You can apply it to your teams. You can apply it to helping someone else get a result. And that's exactly what sales is about. It's helping them get a better result.
Yeah.
Helping them move through what they need to move through to get to where they need to get. Great point, Paul. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
I got one, Sam, in terms of like, you know, business mentors quite often been quite successful. And in terms of not only in the advice that they give, but would that also be in the form of modelling that they may give in terms of being able to sort of take on their strategy, you know, their story, what were their beliefs, etc., you know, what were they thinking at the time, and then actually feeding off that and then replicating that in yourself to some degree?
Absolutely. I mean, modelling, mentors are exactly that, people you want to model, and they may not be aware of the structure. So it becomes our job to say, okay, you know, what were you thinking at the time? You know, why did you do that? Or, you know, how did you have the guts to make that decision? You know, asking those questions, getting, you know, as I say, quizzical, like getting intrigued, like exploring what was going on in their heads. Absolutely, because if you just say, what did you do? They're going to say, we did this, 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 and this. And you'll learn almost nothing. Because the environment's changed, you're in a different business, whatever it is. Like, okay, cool, you did that. How did you think? What did you believe? How did you? That's what I love reading autobiographies about, because I want to go, what was it? What was that spark? What was that thing that made them take that risk or make that decision? Because that's what you learn from. It's that belief that drove that, because that's what you can apply in your own life. Because then you can almost go, okay, I'm in this situation. What would Richard Branson do? What would Tony Robbins do? What would Nelson Mandela do? And you can actually maybe think what they would do because you're thinking how they think. So you learn how they think, and you're going to give, you know, you're going to bring your own take to it. You know, I think modelling, to me, effective modelling is see what someone's done, and then do it better. So it's not do what they did. It's like, how can I learn from them and then improve on it? And that's where you need to get that deeper understanding. I think mentors are an exact great example of that. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Australia?
With that, Sam, like Brooke talking to mentors, he's always talking to me about psychology and state.
Yep.
And he always says to me about knowing that I need to know what state I want to be in when I come to work every day. And it's really important that to get myself in that state that I prepare or have a routine that when I get to work makes me be in the right frame of mind to be able to work every day. And like, you know, that might be something as simple as when I get in, making sure I have a big glass of water or whatever it is. But it always kind of takes me back to, if you look at any like top sports people or people who are in a really competitive environment, they always have a specific routine that gets them in the right state of mind to be able to run like Usain Bolt or play tennis like Andre Agassi or whatever it is. They all have a specific kind of state management or psychology process.
Yep.
And I think it's really important for individuals to know what it is that gets them in that right state.
What are your triggers?
What are your triggers? Yeah, what is it that you need to do to come into work or whatever it is, be outside of work and be in the right frame of mind? Because like, we can all hark back at times where we did, you know, from a sales perspective, did 100 grand in a week or 100 grand in a month or whatever it was, and we felt amazing and our state was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
But we want to mirror that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So it's capturing what gets people to that state.
Yeah. Keith, you know, we had a really good month, and Keith, who I was going to see in Texas, was like, all right, you got to find out what were your solution specialists wearing, what colour socks were they wearing, what do they have for breakfast, what are they saying to themselves, what do they listen to when they drive to work, because that state is what, you know, it's like you treat from the bottom up, but you also set success up from the bottom up. You set it up from that state, so you learn your own cues, you learn what puts you in a peak state, you learn what music sets you off, what actions you have to do on the way to work. I think that's a great distinction, Henry, and it's something I do is I consciously set my state when I come to work and I set it when I go home. I change it, because if you're in a kick-ass take names, let's get going when you go to work, if you come home and start kicking ass and taking names, it doesn't go down so well. So at different states, but it sort of starts, that's the filter for the other stuff. Great distinction, Henry.
With that, Sam, one of the things that I'll share with everyone briefly is in terms of state and going home and switching, like I want to be in the zone of, you know, let's do as many deals as we can, let's focus on sales, being the best, etc. when I'm at work. And Gemma recently had a talk to me about that when I come home, I'm not necessarily in the right state with the children. So she's like, not in terms of I'm still in the work zone, but I get distracted by things like being able to access like Facebook or on the iPad or whatever it might be. So in order to make sure that I'm in the right state when I'm at home, I'm about to remove myself from Facebook, for example. Because when I go home, I want to be in the right state to give time to Taylor and Gibson. I don't want to be distracted by crappy little news feeds about what people are doing. And it's all about choices. That is what it comes down to. You choose what decisions you make, and that's all part of state management.
Great point, because those are different triggers, aren't they? You're
exactly right,
checking Facebook or a little in your phone is a trigger that will set a different state compared to what state you need to be present with your children. And that's a great point, because what I've learned with having kids as well is that getting things done, which is what I want to do at work, get it done, get the results, doesn't work with kids, because it's not about getting things done at all. It's just about being present and enjoying what is. So different states, get conscious about it, and it changes your filter, it changes your experience. Great point, Henry. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? No? All right, I'll leave you with this final quote. Whip it on! Now this guy, Henry knows about this guy because I shared him a few years ago. Bill Dow. Bill Dow joined the Marines, I think, when he was 17. And his first drill instructor was the meanest guy in the Marines. And he would break people. And he was a mean guy, and he would turn people into mean Marines. And one day Bill Dow was standing to attention, and the drill instructor came by and noticed a scuff on Bill Dow's shoe. And he punched him in the stomach. And he said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" And Bill Dow just looked at him and he said, "Whip it on." And the guy punched him in the stomach again. He said, "What do you have to say for yourself?" He said, "Whip it on." And this kept happening until the drill instructor broke his hand.
Oh my God.
And this is an attitude that Bill Dow adopted. Bill Dow then went to Vietnam. And there was a hill that they were trying to take, and everyone had been killed trying to take this hill. And Bill Dow was given the job to take the hill. And he took the hill. He instilled in his men, whip it on, the attitude of whip it on. He was then paralyzed from the waist down in Vietnam and said he would never walk again. He was walking again in a year, and then he went back into 2 more tours of duty in Vietnam. Bill Dow had an attitude, and his attitude was whip it on. That is a state. There's a focus there. There's a language there. There is a physiology there that goes with it. If he was tired, he would whip it on. If it was impossible, he would whip it on. If everyone was going to die, if they didn't take this hill, he would whip it on. And that, to me, I think is such a great example. If you set it from the bottom up, if you set the state from the bottom up, if you set an attitude of whip it on, that is the focus is bring it. I don't care what the world throws at me, I can handle it. The attitude, the language is just, let's go. And then the physiology is powerful, it's strong. When he adopted that state, he achieved the impossible. And I think that's the cool thing about adopting an incredibly empowering state, is that you can achieve what other people perceive as impossible, and you can make the impossible possible every single day. You can set an example for your team, you can set an example for your family, you can set an example to anyone. Like, you can achieve great things, and that's going to bring people along with you. It's going to lift people up. You're going to help your teams to become all they can be. And I think that's the power. That's what gets me excited about looking at this. Start with the state. Start with the state. Move to the story. What beliefs, what narrative, and then look at the strategy. But if you look at Bill Dow in Vietnam, the strategy, of course they had a good strategy to take the hill. He didn't have a different strategy. He had a different attitude. He brought a different state, and his men brought a different state. And they had different beliefs as a result. And they were able to achieve the impossible because of this one man. And I think that's the cool thing about leadership. That is what the privilege of leadership, that you can achieve the impossible and you can help people to feel better about themselves because they achieved that much more in their lives because of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.